So today I'm going to be trying something a little bit different. I'm going to try to make potion bottles out of light bulbs. Now I know what you're thinking. Why? Seems like maybe a light bulb wouldn't be your first choice to make a bottle out of, right? But you know, they have a cool rounded flask shape, and I've collected a few here that are clear and not like the frosted glass like a lot of them are. Just old ones that have burnt out, and I'm going to see if I can make them into some cool potion bottles. So the first step, obviously, is I'm going to have to take a light bulb and remove the inners, the filament, and all of its guts and stuff. So as you can see, this is the same light bulb here. I just hollowed it out, so now it's a little bottle. So I'm going to show you how to do that here safely in just a second. And so I have in total 6 different bulbs that we're going to try to make bottles out of. So I have 2 of like the regular sized normal light bulbs, and then I have 2 of these which are the same shape but they're smaller. They're like the appliance light bulbs. I just found one of them earlier today. I opened the fridge and one of the lights was burnt out, and I was like, well, I gotta take that extra potion bottle. So now I have 2 of these. Earlier I only had 1. I have this one here, which is also a little smaller, but it's round, so that's exciting. As you can see, I already emptied this one. And then this one's going to be an experiment. I would like to try to use one of these, you know, like little pointy ones for like a fan, or that kind of light fixture. But I have never successfully gutted one of these without breaking it. But I have a new strategy, so I'm going to give it a try, and if it breaks, we just won't use this one. Alright, so let's get to opening a light bulb. Okay, so the tools that I find most helpful for gutting a light bulb are wire cutters, needle nose pliers, definitely, a screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver. I actually have also a smaller one, just in case for the smaller bulbs. I don't know if we'll need tweezers. I grabbed some tweezers. Also have a pair of hobby shears. Those are handy. And a hammer. Yeah, I know, the hammer maybe seems like a bit overkill, but you'll see what I'm going to use the hammer for in a second. And safety glasses. Let's not forget about safety glasses. Okay, so obviously this is kind of dangerous, and there's a fairly high risk of broken glass, so if you're going to do this, be very careful, take safety precautions. If you're a kid, definitely have an adult help you with this. The first step to opening a light bulb is you have to remove this black part here, and that black part is actually glass. I know it doesn't look necessarily like glass, but it is glass. So you just want to hold the light bulb, you know, get a good grip on it. I'm not going to like squeeze really hard on the bulb. Have a solid grip like on the metal, the screw socket. And I'm just going to attempt to cut this. Like I'm going to come at it horizontally and just, basically I'm trying to put grooves in it. So I'm applying gentle but like firm pressure. I'm not trying to like in one big motion shatter it. I'm just very carefully trying to like cut into it. And it's okay if I kind of slide, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here. I kind of slide the wire cutter down it. I'm cutting grooves into the glass. Okay, so we've got it started there. We've got some grooves in the glass. Now, once I have some grooves set, I'll put the wire cutters back into those grooves. And I'm just going to squeeze a little harder. And there we go. So as you can see, the bottom of that has now chipped. And we have pieces of this black glass that is on the bottom of a light bulb. So we're just going to start removing that in small pieces now. I'm going to take my pliers and I'm just going to pull on the little metal pad on the bottom. Try to get that out. The wire that this is connected to goes through glass, so you can have to tug on it a little bit. You could snip it if you want. Just knock all that out of there. And this is where a screwdriver comes in handy, because like you can kind of, I don't know if you can see, there's a tiny piece of black glass stuck right there to the edge, so I'm just going to take a screwdriver and like tap that loose. We'll get the rest of that out in a minute. Okay, so now that we have all of the black glass out of the cap, you can kind of see down inside the light bulb. But it is still, you still can't access the inside. It's still self-contained because this stem that holds the filament is actually part of the outer bulb. It is just folded back inside. So what we need to do is break that out of there. So the way that I do that is I take a screwdriver and I just slide it right down into the stem as far as it'll go, and then I just pop. Just a very gentle twist. And then I'm going to do the other. Whoops. Okay, and so that took out part of the inner stem. There's a little part that like sticks back up this way, but not the outer stem. So now we're going to go for that. And what I do for that is I take my screwdriver. This part's a little dicey, so I'm holding the bulb firmly, and I'm holding the screwdriver here, and I'm going to take my hammer and I'm just going to gentle tap. I broke the light bulb. So as you can see, I have broken a hole in the side of the light bulb because when the stem was coming down, it hit the side. So unfortunately, we're down a bulb. And I'm still going to go ahead and try to clear the rest of the stem out. So this light bulb is emptied. It does have a hole in the side, but I'm not going to give up on it just yet. Maybe we can salvage it. So it is a very clean hole. There's not like cracks off of the hole. So I'm just going to set it aside. Maybe we can salvage it. And then I'm going to move on to open the small one. And I'm going to try not to break that one. Okay, so here's the small one. Process starts the same. Wire cutters, remove the black glass. Isn't that glass, it's like scratching sound, just like the most terrible? Alright, moment of truth. We're going to try this again. Actually, we're going to use the small screwdriver. I think that might be the trick, just to use the smaller screwdriver. I'm going to put it in at an angle. We're going to tap it gently. Okay, we did it. The screwdriver is through, the stem is loose, and there's no hole in the light bulb. So if you just take your time, if you're patient, it can be done. So the stem is now dangling from that wire, so I'm going to go ahead and snip that off. Okay, well it's back on the side, but it's loose. So now I just need to widen the hole until I can get the stem out. Okay. Let's get a close up here. So as you can see, there's the broken stem, right there. And I'm just going to take my screwdriver and I'm going to put it right at the edges, and I'm just going to go like this. And I'm just going to go around to the next edge. And I'm just going to press. Oh, my finger is kind of covering that there. There's another shard here sticking up. I'm just gonna press. See, so I'm just breaking it into the light bulb until that edge on the inside is a circle, basically. It doesn't have any parts that are curving down, because it's harder to break the compound curves going the other way. So once I've got it pretty much just a hole, I'm going to reverse, and I'm going to put the screwdriver under that edge, and I'm going to pull outward. And I usually cover this hole with my thumb when I'm doing it, so like stuff doesn't come out of the hole. Okay, we've got it most of the way, so I'm just going to dump this out. And as you can see, pretty much everything just falls out except for the stem. Got a little bit stuck, but it fits through the hole fairly well. And now I'm just gonna a little bit more around that edge. Okay, the small one has been emptied. It worked much better than the large one. I didn't accidentally put a hole in it, but we're still gonna try to salvage that large one. I think it'll be okay. So also you might notice that the rim of the socket got a little bit marred up when I was breaking the glass. So it's a good idea to maybe have some pliers on hand. You can try to straighten that out a little bit. You can even take, if you take Nemo's pliers, you can stick them all the way down until they kind of hit, and then push them a little bit further, and then just turn them, and they'll kind of, the roundness will round out the hole a little bit more. Okay, so let's move on to the tiny one and see if I can pull this off. So, just like with the other ones, starts out the same. First, remove the black glass, except it's much smaller this time. Okay, so now for the small one, the opening in the socket is so small that you really can hardly do anything with it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take my shears and I'm going to snip the metal around the edge. I'm just going to put little snips in it up to the angle, like where it turns to go down. And we're going to try to then fold that in so that the diameter of the opening is about as wide as it can possibly be up to the outside of the socket. Okay, so I've widened that up, and I'm just going to take my screwdriver and I'm going to kind of like pry those flaps up. Oops, that didn't really cut through all the way there. Come on. There we go. And that is going to help us release the rest of that black glass that was trapped in there. Just because the hole is so small, it's kind of hard to work with. Okay, so now I'm just going to take this edge and I'm just going to roll it on the counter and try to push all of those flaps back down. And I'm going to take my pliers. I'm just using the edge, so I guess you could use the screwdriver. And I'm just going to push all of those flaps inward because that's where I wanted them in the first place. I just had to fold them out so that I can get the glass out of there. Okay, there's one little spot where it's kind of sticking up unevenly, so I'm just going to snip that off with the snips, and that is about as even as I'm going to get the top of this thing to be, I think. Okay, so as you can see, the hole is now the same diameter as the socket itself. So now we have to get to the stem, because on this one the whole inside is filled with this like brown glue and the glass isn't even hardly visible. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to kind of chisel away at that glue with our screwdriver. I barely feel like I'm making a dent. There's a lot of glue in here. There is not normally this much glue. Like, I've tried to open these pointy ones before, and like, I don't think I've seen this much glue, even in the other ones. It's like they don't want you to open these things. I think this light bulb just had an abnormally large amount of glue in it. So I'm just gonna keep chiseling away at it. I broke the stem off. I didn't even need the hammer. So that's fine. That can just kind of hang out down inside there while I get the rest of this glue out of here. I'm also just like annihilating the socket, which I want to stay in somewhat decent condition, because because that's going to be kind of the neck of our bottle. Like, I'm probably going to cover it with something, you know, but it would be nice if it stayed vaguely cylindrical. Okay, I've got a drill bit now, and I'm just by hand, like, twisting the drill bit. I'm trying to be real careful because I don't want to break the glass, but I'm trying to, like, scrape the glue out of the way. Okay, I managed to snip the wire. It's not snipped enough, like it's still there, but the stem fell down in the bottle now, so at least it's out of my way. The drill bit kind of works, so I'm just gonna get a larger drill bit. I got the whole wire. I wonder if the stem will come out now. Oh, it's so tantalizingly close. I got it! Oh, we have done it. We have emptied the pointy light bulb. I don't know, the pointy light bulb. We emptied the pointy light bulb. Yay, okay. I'm gonna try to shape the socket back up a bit because it got really beat up, but we did it. The inside is all covered with dust now from me grinding up that glue. So I'm just going to take some water, squirt a little bit down in there, shake it up good, rinse the inside out. Alright, we have now emptied our light bulbs, and we can proceed with making them into potions. Okay, so now that we've emptied our light bulbs, obviously our potion bottles are going to need bases, because light bulbs don't really, you know, stand up by themselves. So what we need is some little bases, legs, etc. to make them into bottles that will stand up. So I've collected just a bunch of random things. The first thing that I'm going to try to use to make little legs for the bottles is these little squashed glass marble things that you get at craft stores to put in vases. You know what they are, you've seen them. I have a jar full of them, and one of them in the jar was broken, like, perfectly in half. I said to myself, that would make a really cool little leg for a light bulb potion bottle. But I need two more, because I only have one half. I have no idea what happened to the other half one. So I'm just going to take another one of these, and I'm going to see if I can break it cleanly in half. And then I'll have three, and I can make like a little cauldron-based tripod. Alright, so other things that I want to possibly use for bases. I have this candlestick. This is a wooden candlestick. I have a few of these. And you might be thinking, how are you going to use that? Well, look, there's a screw at the bottom. So that means that it unscrews. Look at that! An excellent little wooden round base. And this, I don't know what I'm going to do with that, but I mean, it's a little bit, the inside could be a little bit lower. I might drill that out a bit more, just so that the edge of this sits right up against the glass. I've also got this, which is a lens from an old broken pair of binoculars, and this key ring. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the lens. How do I demonstrate this? I'm going to take the lens, and I'm going to put the key ring on top of it, and I'm going to put the bulb on top of that. I also have one of these little jars where the lid has this like claspy mechanism thing. Anyway, we're going to take this apart. Because this lid will make an excellent base for one of these smaller ones. I also have some silver Sculpey, and I would like to try to sculpt a base around one of them, something cool like a snake coil around the bottle. And then for this guy, I don't actually want to make a base for it. What I would like to do is take these little rings, these silver rings, and I want to like solder them on to each side of the metal socket like that, so it has like little hangers that you could like put a chain on, and it would be like a pendant, or you could like hang it on like a stand, you know, like with little forks, which is what I think I'm going to do. So I'm going to try to do that for that one, and I think that's all of our bulbs accounted for. Alright, so let's start with the squash marbles, because that one will be the easiest to do. Okay, so I have a chisel and a hammer and some double-sided tape, and again, we're going to use safety glasses because who knows what's going to happen. This is a very dangerous episode, and I'm going to stick the glass marble thing right in the center so that it doesn't move, and then I'm going to line up my chisel dead center. Here goes. So far, nothing. Okay, I've covered it in masking tape. It is completely encased. I'm going to line up the chisel as best I can. Here we go. Here's the big hit. Got it. Boom. Clean in half. There we go. Okay, I just wasn't hitting it hard enough. I mixed up some 5-minute epoxy to attach the legs to the bottom of the light bulb. In order to hold them in place, I took some masking tape and tore it in half so it would be a little thinner, and then I just taped each leg in place so that it wouldn't slide around while it was drying. It was a little tricky to get them all lined up the way I wanted them, so I just had to keep setting it on the flat surface to try to get the neck of the bottle as straight as it could be. I'm going to try to repair this one with a hole in it. Here's my idea. I have some buttons. This is my little paper drawer buttons. So like, I want to take one of these cool ones like this that's solid and just like glue it over the hole. So I think the two that I'm between are this one and this one. And I think I'm going to go with this one because it covers the hole just a little bit better. This is, I don't even know if this is a button or like a cuff link or what, but it's got a little brooch clip thing on the back, so I'm going to try to cut that off real quick and then glue it over that hole. I made sure to cover the whole perimeter of the button with epoxy, so once it was glued in place and dried, it wouldn't leak out around the edges. While I had the epoxy mixed up, I went ahead and used the leftover to glue the jar lid to the other light bulb, and also to glue the little lens and keyring stand to the round light bulb. Once the epoxy was cured, but still not fully hardened and a little rubbery, I took advantage of that to clean up the areas where it squeezed out with an X-Acto knife. Unfortunately, the lens and keyring base that I used for the spherical light bulb ended up curing with the light bulb a bit crooked, so I just used a knife to scrape that completely off and tried something else later. After I drilled the hole in the wooden base a little bit deeper with a speed bit, I just put a quick coat of gold paint on it to make it look a bit nicer. For the pointy light bulb, I set up my soldering iron so that I could attach the rings to the side, but before I did that, I actually attached a third ring to the mouth of the bottle to kind of hide how badly that edge got messed up. The rings just happened to be the perfect diameter, so I decided why not. I held the side rings in place with my soldering tweezers while I attached them, and I applied a little flux to all the rings just to help the solder wick on a little better. Overall, both the metal of the ring and the socket accepted the solder very nicely. I found a nice big silver button to replace the base for the spherical light bulb, and this time I made sure to get it on nice and straight. And once the gold paint was dry on the wooden base, I epoxied that one onto the light bulb as well. Moving on to the Sculpey, I decided to go with 2 snakes coiled around the bottle because, you know, they're snakes. They're fairly easy to sculpt. They're just noodles with heads, and sculpting is not really my forte. They ended up coming out okay though, and once they were finished, I just popped the whole bottle into the toaster oven to bake the Sculpey. Now to add some decoration. To hide the socket on the pointy light bulb, I took some silver jewelry wire and just wrapped it around until I couldn't see the threads anymore and tacked it in place with a bit of super glue. For the bottle with a button on it, I decided to take some gold chains from an old necklace and attach them to the bottle in a way so that they kind of looked like they were loosely draped over the bottle. I thought this gave it a really interesting look, and the gold chains matched the gold on the button and the base, so it all kind of came together nicely. Once the chains were glued in place, I covered the threads on this bottle using some leather strips. I went for a dark brown, and I just wrapped them around, supergluing them every so often until all of the metal of the socket was covered. Then I put a cork in it, and I glued a button on top for an extra gold accent. The socket on this bottle had some text on it, and I removed that with sandpaper since I wasn't planning to cover the metal completely on this one. I wrapped it with some ribbon that kind of had a twine texture, and then I took some more string-like twine, and I just wrapped it around the gap at the base to kind of tie the whole thing together. For the round bottle, I found some nice shiny silver string and used that to wrap the threads. For the topper, I had this glass knob that came off the end of a curtain rod, and since it already had screw threads on the bottom, I just threaded it into a cork and put it in the top of the bottle. Next, I took a necklace from my box of old costume jewelry and removed the pendant from the chain because I wanted to glue the pendant onto the front of this bottle. Unfortunately, that made the bottle a little heavy to one side, so I actually ended up adding the other binocular lens that I didn't use before to the base because it was a little wider so that it would stand up, and I just used super glue this time because I didn't feel like breaking out the epoxy again. I also used some different colors of leather strap to wrap the threads of the snake bottle and the cauldron bottom one, and for the cauldron bottom one I gave it a little loop of leather so that you could, I don't know, hang it on a belt or something. Okay, so the only potion that I have left to finish is this one. And since this one is pointy on the bottom, won't stand up by itself, I want to make a little base for it with like a little stand that has a fork that'll go through these two holes. So to do that, I need something to be the base, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little pod container thing that has nylon in it. I'm not going to use that part, I'm not going to use the top part. I'm just going to use the base of this because it's got a nice little rounded shape. I'm going to fill it with plaster, and then I'm going to use some armature wire to make the little stand. While the plaster for the stand was drying, I decided to make a cool stopper for this bottle. I had this cool glass bead I wanted to use, so I made a rubber stopper out of hot glue to attach it to by taking a cork that I knew fit in the bottle and pressing it into some Sculpey to make a mold for the glue. Then I just put a little wire inside the bead and glued it in place. I also attached the chain from that necklace earlier to the rings on the side of the bottle. The hot glue got a little bit of Sculpey stuck in it, but it wasn't anything I couldn't scrape off with a knife, and that was it. I had a rubber stopper for my bottle. To finish off the stand, I used a scrapped thin metal rod that I had from the cage around a clamp light, but a thick gauge wire would also work. I bent it in two pieces, one nice gentle curve to be the back, and one fork to hold the bottle. And then once I had those pieces shaped, I soldered them together. This metal rod, however, proved to be a bit trickier to get solder to stick to. I think it might have had some kind of coating on it, and I just had to keep at it until that mostly burned away and then the solder would adhere. And then I drilled a hole in the plaster base, which I had hit with a coat of hammered black spray paint, and I just pressed the whole thing in. I didn't even need to glue it, it was such a nice pressure fit. Finally, I just took some acetone on a Q-tip and used it to just slightly go over the areas where I had superglued because some superglue fog was accumulating on the glass, so I just cleaned that off, and then I was ready to fill all of my bottles with water and just various food coloring to make them look a bit more magical. Alright, here are all 6 finished light bulb potions. I think all of them turned out pretty cool. I'm very happy with them all. I especially, man, it's hard to pick a favorite. It's probably between these two if I had to pick a favorite. I love the way this bottle turned out. Very Felix Felicis. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that one. And then this one too just looks so elegant. But I mean, they're all great. I love the simplicity of this one, and I love the little legs. I think they're a great base. This one turned out very good. I think the twine gives it a nice look. The snake one is very cool. This one's probably my least favorite, just because I am the biggest critic of my own sculpting skills. But I think that this technique has a lot of potential. So I would love to see if somebody out there watching this is a better sculptor than me. I would love to see what you could make using some sculpting and a light bulb, because I think there's some really cool potion bottles to be had by doing that. And I'm very happy with how this one turned out also, especially considering that this was the one that broke and I managed to salvage it. It's not, I don't know, it's not my favorite, but it's up there. Let me know how you think the potions turned out, and I hope that this kind of crazy idea inspires some other people to try it. So thank you for watching, and stay tuned if you're interested in seeing my next project.